Thank you. Now, this is a treat. Okay, I've been looking forward to this all week. And I want to start by letting you know a little bit of history that I have with at least Chris, but I know that this is shared with the Idea Collective. One thing that you will see in the thread of their story are two things that I share with them. One is servant leadership, and two is humility. These guys are so humble. I use the term like-hearted. You don't always have to think like people, but you can find commonalities in the values. So they're very like-hearted individuals, and you're truly going to enjoy this chat. So without further ado, Chris Dimick, David Kittredge, the Idea Collective.
Half of the Idea Collective.
Half.
Two of us.
Two of them. So start out, kind of tell us what your function is, what your background is with the Idea Collective, and what values or what you bring to the table.
Individually, like what part?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's four of us. I live in a few buckets across the company, but Ginger and I specifically kind of share a similar role where we focus a lot on the human experience and the design of like the spatial kind of element of all of the concepts that we do or design for ourselves or for other folks. And so I work on building that idea in the beginning and creating that movie, what becomes the concept that folks experience in the space, separate from all the operations side of things. But then myself personally kind of takes on the construction management part of what we do as we build these concepts, and I'll dig deep into the finances of what those build outs cost and bring them to life and work with all the contractors from kind of dirt to keys to get those guys open.
Chris?
And then I'm the ops guy. I just help run things and build teams and run cultures and systems and all that fun stuff. And I guess clarify, the Idea Collective is first and foremost a hospitality concept development and design firm. And we've done the majority of our work in our past in larger markets, other markets outside of Dayton, helping other folks as consultants take their ideas to fruition. And so we've been able to link up. I became a partner in the company when we all moved to Dayton about 5 years ago, with a goal of also starting our own hospitality group and opening our own concepts that add value to the community and kind of, yeah, things that we can point to on the consulting side and say, yeah, we also do this for ourselves. So that's how we got here and what we do.
We had, Ginger and myself and Jeremy, who's not present, had been working on a bunch of these concepts kind of across the country for a while, and we're about to open a bunch of stuff in Oklahoma City and start the leg of which we'll talk about here, which became Forefront at the time, but still didn't have that operations partner that we're confident with and needed that magic touch, and we found Chris on our way to Dayton through a mutual connection and started that whole piece and finally said, yeah, this is the missing link we've been looking for a while.
I love that you have the people focus. And I don't want to misquote you, but it was like finding awesome people to do really cool-ish. Is something like that?
Yeah. Do cool stuff with good people and stay curious is kind of our motto.
And so as you've developed this vision, you told me you kind of took a movie approach to this, right?
Yeah, it's kind of our approach to concept development as a whole, for our clients and for ourselves. You want to speak to that, D?
Yeah, I mean, it's the movie theater approach, I guess. Leaving the sunlight, kind of going into a movie theater, being sucked away from everything that you had kind of been in for the day, and being submersed in what that film is and becoming a part of it, and being transported to somewhere else. for that moment in time, I think is something that we try to apply to all of our concepts from a design standpoint and human experience and culture and approach and specifically on my side especially, I try to make sure that when you come in, you feel like you've been transported to somewhere else, and for that moment in time that you're with us, you don't feel like you're in Dayton or in Oklahoma City or wherever. You have a different vibe than you would at just a kind of run-of-the-mill restaurant or bar or any kind of hospitality concept.
Chris, anything to add to that? No.
Yeah, I think hospitality at its core is about creating a feeling, right? And feelings are born out of, our senses, right? It's a sensory thing, right? And so you can create a feeling with great food and flavors. You can create a feeling with sound. You can do it with lighting, etc. And so the movie analogy is holistic in that way, right? How do we create an experience that imparts a feeling that's touching all of those senses, right? And so there's a lot of work on the front side to conceptualize and develop that, but it ultimately comes down to the people that are executing it. And so, yeah, I mean, we hear it all the time. It's not just because you walk in and you think, oh, this feels like a bar in New York. Like you walk out thinking, wow, that experience just felt like something I haven't felt anywhere.
I forgot I was in Dayton. Like you're saying, I forgot I was in Dayton.
Paying attention to those details, I don't know how many hours we spend on, these lights above us right now. I can tell you are 3,000 Kelvin lights. We look at all of those kinds of things. How does it make you feel? How does it make your skin look? How does it, should it be 2,700 Kelvin? Should it be 4,000? Depending on what the concept is. Scent branding. If you guys have been into Tender Mercy, you've probably walked through a barrage of incense and different smells. We want to hit you right out of the gate with something that takes you somewhere that is specific to that kind of a concept. And we do that with lighting. We do that with scent branding. We do that with the material feel of different fabrics and woods, and all of the material built outside of it has a reason behind it. It's not just we like that color, or why should we put that into the concept. The burnt wood when you walk into Sueno is to invoke the idea of what we're doing in the hearth, and small details like that start to add up to this sum of its parts that gives you a story subliminally. That's where the kind of movie approach comes in, and enough of those little details make people remember, especially through smell, but lighting and materials and all that stuff. They won't forget a space if you do it right.
So it's that thought of you're not selling food. You're not like the restaurant. I'm selling food or a product. You are giving them a whole experience. So I want to touch on the vision, because it's clear that you guys really think this through, and we appreciate that they do, right? But how far is this vision really? Because it's much more than what we see in Dayton. We're going to start delving into how you crafted this long-term strategy for the Idea Collective and all of the things that you had planned to develop. But how did you start with that? How did this process start? Did you say we're going to have Sueno Tender Mercy, or did it start with a different concept and evolve from there?
Oh, that's a good question. I think at the core, we set out to establish a group that had the ability to scale and do really special things that, move the needle a little bit. Specifically, when we were looking at Dayton, I had a few years of access to the community. Full transparency, I came here. The catalyst for me personally was my now wife, who's from Kettering. So we did long distance when I was still in LA for like 2 years. And then, so when I'd come, she's working, I'm hanging out, and I just come poke around, start meeting people and getting into the industry and trying to figure out what's going on. And so yeah, when we first looked at it, we simply looked at the market and we said, well, what do we love that we do, or that we've seen, or that we would love to participate in, that isn't necessarily happening? And so the quick answer and really quick consensus, I think, across the four of us. I don't even think I'd met Jeremy in person yet at this point.
Yeah.
I was still in LA. I remember I was behind Toka on the phone. Was an elevated Mexican restaurant. I had opened three of them and developed them in LA, so I knew the cuisine and the culture, and I loved it. And we've got some good kind of Tex-Mex stuff happening in the Midwest, I guess, but it's a whole different thing. And so that was just a void in the market. Tender Mercy is a concept that we just really love. The idea of a elevated cocktail lounge had some unique ideas that we were curious and confident would work. But that was born out of opportunity with the real estate that we found for the restaurant, more so than anything. So, the ideas for the concepts come from all over the place, and they constantly evolve. And I think being fluid around those ideas and strategies is really important. Our plan when we all signed up to move to Dayton has evolved many, 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 many times to get to this point. So I think being open and flexible is really important.
Absolutely. And we got to see a glimpse of that during COVID because I think what your original plan was, you actually exercised some flexibility. You flipped your plan.
Yeah, we did. It's a long, long, long story. But pre-COVID, we kind of doubled down on Dayton because we came here with a commitment on the capital side of things, and that money and investment ended up falling through. That commitment also came with locations and property, and so these ideas were already kind of applied to specific locations, and so that thing kind of blew up, and we said, well, hey, let's stick around and do this on our own. We really believe in this. We were committed to it. We're here. We've been here 2 years. Let's see it through. So we found a location for the restaurant first. It had an unfinished, really gross, dirty, raw basement space.
I think Woodard was, hey, here's some extra storage if you need it.
Right. It certainly
We
wasn't
said,
going to be.
screw that. This is a bar.
Yeah.
So you saw that immediately. You could see.
We did, and we've seen the efficiencies of stacking multiple concepts in one. Right. Think about like a food hall, for instance. A lot of those food halls are owned by one person, and they sublease out space, and they own the bar in the middle or something of that capacity. But there are efficiencies of scale when you're talking about your prime costs, you're talking about your overhead, you're talking about labor, all these things. So, this cocktail lounge thing for Tender Mercy was, on the long list of future ideas. Sueno was 1A. Yeah. But, we said, well, we can get this pretty cheap. It's sub-market rate down here. We can, there's value down in this basement. Let's commit. So we did, and we started the fundraising process, which we'll talk about in a second. But it was halfway through that process of going out in the community and finding local investment that we realized this is going to be harder than we thought. This is a big idea. We don't know that many people. It's taking a lot of time and effort to get this deal in front of the right people to participate with us and help bring it to fruition. So that was the first pivot pre-COVID, before that was a hot button, a buzzword, was we decided we would take the money we had, and that was enough to get Tender Mercy open. And then that could support the rest of the commitment on the lease and buy us some time to make sure we didn't have to compromise off the vision or the end result. And so we did that. We built the bar out and got it open 3 days before COVID hit.
3 days.
Obviously, that wouldn't have happened if we tried to get a restaurant built in the same amount of time. So that was someone up there looking out for us and nudging us in the right direction for sure, because we wouldn't be sitting here right now without that decision. So.
But, there were a couple things in there that you had mentioned, and I think was very important, was you were looking for the right people to put this in front of, not just anybody. You didn't do it out of desperation. You were still being very mindful of who was going to be on this journey with you.
Yeah, I mean, your team is your family, and you want like-minded folks that understand what the vision is. And we were committed, which is part of the reason it took such a long time, was to keep the investment local. And like Chris said, when we first got here, we barely knew anybody. We had we came in with a development group that asked us to come help work on some stuff, and started to build some relationships. But you want to be careful who you align yourself with, obviously. You want to make sure they share the dream and the vision, and excuse me, can get through any hard times that we weren't aware were going to happen. But you have to plan for that. So if you've got the right folks, that they'll live it out with you no matter what goes on. And what Chris will talk about this too quite a bit. There's money, and then there's smart money, and a lot of times the smart money are folks that get it, and you want to grow old with these kind of people and be a part of the vision. And it wasn't just raising money for a restaurant or a bar or any one particular hospitality concept. It was the idea of a restaurant group that can help give back to the community of Dayton. And when you're going to do that, you definitely need to make sure you're aligning with the right folks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about it, right? Let's talk about the funding. How do you fund a vision like this? How do you get people to invest in this concept that is revolutionary for this area? I mean, you just don't see that everywhere. So how did you go about approaching the investment?
Let's see, where do we want to start with this? I think smart money versus money is really, really important, and David knocked that out of the park. The only thing I'll add to that is, beyond sharing a vision and commitment and the why, Simon Sinek's why, you're really looking for folks who are going to add additional value beyond capital, right? Are they going to be an ambassador and a cheerleader of the brand and help you network and connect in the community? What do they do professionally? What is their expertise, right? The woman who we vetted out and ultimately partnered with to be our CPA for the new venture, she led the first $500,000. We didn't know that, but she helps manage her clients' money. And so she brought 7 different families to the table that aggregated to our first $500,000. Same thing with our legal teams, right? So you want to find folks who, yes, appreciate what you're doing and why it matters for a multitude of reasons, but also you're building a team. I mean, it's a team. So what are you bringing? A lot of people have capital. There's actually a lot of capital out there on the private equity side. People don't know what to do with. It's like it's real estate and stocks. But we turned down money from folks who didn't care about Dayton, didn't know Dayton, have never been to Dayton, would never come to Dayton.
Oh, wow.
They just want to participate with us, and that doesn't move the needle, right? And so that's the kind of finishing up that thought. I'll say in the retail hospitality space, you can absolutely bootstrap it and friends and family it and do all that fun stuff, and we've seen it and we've done that before, and we've helped folks who made that work and helped folks who failed trying to take that approach. For us, where we were at in our career, this was it. This is the big swing. We were prepared for it. We're ready to do it. And so we said, our goal is to build a big, huge pie. In order to get the money to come out swinging like this and go from ideation and vision to an actual product that then we can build on and scale, which is, we got nothing if we can't hit this first single. We're going to have to put together a deal that's very attractive, especially considering some of the challenges we mentioned before, the lack of relationships, right? A very kind of progressive idea in general. So we put together a package where the equity is positioned for our investors, right? This chunk of the pie we were selling which not only valued the company, way pre-revenue, but also diluted the principals right off the jump, right? It was a very, very aggressive offer compared to the industry, and because we knew it was going to be hard. But our mentality was, a smaller piece of a much bigger pie sounds, pretty good.
Do you guys hear that? Because this is really important, what he just said. It's almost, I remember, it's like the Shark Tank. Do you want a percentage of a multi-million-dollar company, or do you want 100% of nothing? Because you can't do this by yourself. So they already recognize from day one, this is going to take a team. It's a team effort. And we're okay with sacrificing a little piece of the pie for a bigger pie eventually. So this is smart moves, smart moves. You talked about control is contractual. Tell us about control is contractual.
Yeah, I think in the entrepreneurial world or the startup world, there's a misconception that as a founder, you need to protect 51% of your company so that no one can steal it from you or whatever. But that's not really true. You know, hire a good lawyer, an operating agreement is established that protects your control of the company and the board seats and whoever else might need to participate if that's something that investors need to sign on the dotted line and write a check. But control is contractual, right? We have full control of the company. Outside of major financial decisions around, the next big one and another capital raise or winding something down it's our company. And these folks understand that, and that's established as on the front side as part of the deal in its original presentation. So, if control is what you're concerned about when you're talking about or thinking about bringing on other investment partners or operational partners, whatever, hire a good attorney. It's a single document.
Well, it doesn't, they don't, your investment team don't feel like silent partners per se. That's not the goal, is to try to, say, stay out of this. They like Chris said, they have lots of fun in input and feedback on the big decisions and all those things. They stay out of the minutia, and they understand that this is what we've been doing for a very long time, so they don't get involved. And like Chris said, it's contractual. You don't have to try to go out and say, I'm going to protect myself by owning the majority of the company, and then nobody can tell me what to do, or I'm going to make sure they understand that I want them to be silent partners. It doesn't even need to be said that way. You just put it out in the deal, and then you write a contract, and this is how it'll be operated, and off to the races. And you tend to find folks that trust you in what you're doing, in that mentality, and get out of your way. Not get out of your way, but
Yeah,
want to participate in different
there's
ways.
an element of kind of self-selection on the investor side too.
Yeah.
Like if people have a problem with that, maybe they're likely not the kind of person you want to do business with. You're looking for people who already inherently understand, or at least going to give you a shot to explain why they should trust you and why you're the right person for this vision and this opportunity.
That's fair. Is there anything else that's unique about the specific investors that you work with that might be different from your typical investor relationship?
I don't know specifically anything with our group necessarily, other than the things we've already mentioned. I think what we've seen in our approach and some of our experience in the startup world as well around funding and fundraising is there are a lot private equity, family offices, right? As I mentioned before, there's a lot of capital out there on the private side. We like to capitalize things on the beginning, on the front side, with private equity for a reason rather than traditional debt, because it provides a runway, and we can set the terms of what that return looks like and when. We could go to the bank tomorrow and go borrow $1 million and do the next thing, but you start paying money and interest on that right away. And in our business, as we've seen proven again through COVID, lots of curveballs, right? Lots of surprises. Construction delays are pretty much guaranteed in some capacity. And so the private equity side not only provides additional value with the relationships and the team that you build, but it also provides you this runway to make sure that you can do it right. And if you come up against the wall, you can go have a conversation. You can't do that with a bank, right?
Let's
you're
talk
done.
about it. Okay, you pay me.
Right, exactly. But no, what we're seeing now, I think, in the investment space on the private equity side too, is they're starting to take cues from venture capitalists, right? Everything's trending this way. So, even grandma and grandpa with a big fund that they're sitting on and trying to do something cool in the community, they're looking for a J curve opportunity like a VC would be. And so they want to hear that, they want to see that. And there are opportunities. I mean, our startup community here in Dayton has grown exponentially in the last decade. We've got groups like Vision Tech Angels. These folks coming together. They're hearing pitches. We're incubating a lot of awesome entrepreneurial stuff in town, in Dayton, Ohio, right? But that behavior from the investment side, it's like pitching on Shark Tank. It's like a startup in Silicon Valley. And so we, in recognizing that from a presentation standpoint, growth opportunity of the company. To David's point before, when we were out pitching this thing, lots of folks couldn't get past the idea that they were investing in Sueno or Tender Mercy, right? And because traditionally, restaurants, hospitality, retail, very, very, very risky, right? Huge rates of failure in the industry, and we can get into why that happens a lot. I think a lot of people think it's an easy thing to do, and it's not. You know, you got a good recipe. You should open a restaurant. It's like, but yeah, they're looking for that very scalable J curve kind of 10x return in their investment, and so we really honed in on, yes, we're starting with these two things, but your position is in this holding company forefront by the Idea Collective that will take this initial capital and do these two first things, and then we're going to leverage that and grow and grow and grow. Yeah.
I love it. So on that note, is there something you want to present, the business plan?
I mean, we could fly through it. Does anyone care? This is what we use to raise the money. Yeah.
Yeah, so what they have is basically the visual of how they presented this idea.
So I guess to wrap up the thought is like it's kind of like the new business plan, right? At some point it was something chicken scratch on the back of a napkin, and then business plans and performance and all those things are still important and they're incorporated, but how do you present it, right? What do people actually see? What do you attach to the email? What do you put up on the slides on the screen when you're pitching it? So this is like a 72-page doc, and we're not going to go all the way through it, but just in skimming it, it's all here. It's got our work experience. It's got the offer. It's got the profiles. It's got the vision for the concepts. It's got the rest of the team that we've aggregated, so on and so forth. I just wanted to share this because I think every time we get a chance to mentor folks who have a big idea and they're putting their plan together, a lot of light bulbs go off when they see this. And it may seem daunting. I think it gets back to the fact that you got a team. I couldn't do this on my own. David does do this. He could do it on his own. He can't run the restaurant though. But point being, like, surround yourself with talented people, right? And really figure it out, or go find those people in the community to help you make it happen. But I can't tell you how many times, and this isn't tooting our own horn, but people are blown away by this presentation. Like, it just added so much credibility right off the jump. And this is the last version of it. So
we're giving them the experience beforehand.
Well, this is another movie thing, right? So it's not, we're not approaching the SBA with the traditional kind of, we're going to go to bank, we're going to get a loan, we're going to, open a restaurant. We're, again, trying to find folks that want to be a part of that vision and that family and that long-term big restaurant group growth thing. And to do that, we have supporting documents for all these things that, deep dive into 3-year performance and show what each of these businesses individually will do and what the growth pattern model is for the company as a whole. And there's a whole plethora of Excel spreadsheets and all that jazz that we develop in conjunction with this, that we have at any moment to hand over. But in the beginning, you're not pitching people on numbers. You're pitching people on an idea and a story and that movie and what makes you unique from everybody else. And so, you're building a pitch deck. You're not, building a bunch of spreadsheets to show to folks to say, here's my numbers.
Well, there are plenty of people will just skip over this stuff. They just want to get straight to the math. That's fine too.
They're not excited. They can make a lot of money investing in traditional investments. So you're trying to find folks that are in that place in their life that want to give back to the community. They want to be a part of that vision and that dream. And so you don't want to waste their time with just a bunch of numbers, that can be provided, with a, hey, I'm into this. Okay, great, we'll shoot over all that stuff. And in the beginning, you need to talk about the vision and the idea in the movie.
Yeah, I think the communication on the front's super important. Like, spend the time here, right? If you believe you're ready to do this and launch a business and raise money, that's awesome. Yeah. This is the work that doesn't come easy. Most of us can't do it on our own. We need to find the help to get it done. But this is the new standard. I mean, we did pitch to Vision Tech Angels for a restaurant group. That's not what they usually get, right? But we didn't get laughed out of the room because we were prepared. And I guess the moral of sharing this is simply, that first impression really, really matters. And it does take a lot of work and a lot of unique skill sets to get it done. But that's the climate now. That's what people are looking for.
I mean, I saw this deck ahead of time, and I was just blown away because I'm thinking, I can almost smell the food from this. I can already feel the atmosphere just from the visuals. The fact that they took the time to do 3D renderings of the space to transport you into the space and give you, the walk-around view of the restaurant, of the bar. You've already done way more than anybody else probably would have in their pitch. And I think that is what sets you apart, that everything connects. What you say your vision is, what you say your ethos is, it's all consistent in the way that you execute. And I have so much respect for that. So now, right now, we're going to open it up for Q&A, unless there's any other, tips or things along this journey that you want to leave people with that you've learned from having to be flexible. Kudos to them. These guys were named Esquire, one of Esquire's #1 bars in America during COVID. Okay, so the flexibility and still delivering an experience that not only was memorable but profitable, and I'm telling you, they're the master class in hospitality. This is a treat to even have you guys in this area. So I will leave you the floor to impart your last words of wisdom.
Yeah, we're all ears. What do you guys got? I don't have anything to add to you.
Well, I'll just say a few more things I think is fairly important in how we raise this money through this deck. It just looks like a pretty deck, but beyond the partnerships that we created in the beginning with CPAs and legal and all that, our development partner with Woodard, you folks are probably very familiar with, has done a lot of great things downtown. That was a strategic piece in what we're doing. But if you're trying to specifically build hospitality concepts, align yourself with folks that can go down this path. We've spent years in-house. We can produce all this stuff ourselves. We still partner with architects for a reason to figure out a lot of the MEP problems that will come up, mechanical problems or electrical problems or plumbing problems or just facility problems in general. The reason we spend so much time on the front end mocking these things up beyond being able to figure out the budget to the penny before you open is to understand the logistics of how the space moves. And so it looks like just a pretty quick rendering, but there's a reason we go down that path, which is to flush out all the stuff that could cause problems in a space when you do it. And so just finding a space that looks beautiful to you at first, or the location is perfect, there's more to it than that, in my opinion, that I think you should put the effort into. And even all of that effort, we found a ton of challenges after we built the space beyond that, but because we put so much time in the beginning and into flushing that stuff out. And if you don't have those capabilities in-house, you can partner with architectural firms to do that. And a lot of folks, like Moda specifically, now has the ability to take our mock-ups and renderings, and we can bring investors and construction partners and all those folks in and put a virtual reality set on and actually walk through the space and feel it out. So, if you're trying to understand how your kitchen's going to work perfectly, you can physically be in there, and that's invaluable tool that we used to not have years ago that you can do now. So, things like that, and strategic partners on the construction side and the development side and legal and all your financing and CPAs and all that stuff. Those are strategic things you should think about before you even start down this path, and then put that energy into this kind of a presentation will make a huge difference.
Ultimately, what we just flew through was version 80 something. As we went down the process of all the logistical elements of building these spaces and establishing budgets and getting bids and all that stuff, that work is represented here. Those aren't just renderings to look pretty in a deck. That is the end result. It's a different application of the same work that we were doing for other parts of the process. So, you know, keeping up with the opportunity is also important if it's necessary, you know?
Yeah, don't just use it as a visual tool. Use it to help you truly understand your capital budget and what the build-out's going to cost. Those are super important things.
Absolutely. Q&A. Any questions? Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about, Chris, you're really good at, finding a way. And you talked a little bit about, right before COVID is when you opened, but then like maybe the rest of the people here don't know what you did to get yourself, the accolades that you have now, as far as like, having a little bodega spot, having, your to-go drinks, like all the other things. You're very good at that, Chris. And that's something that we have to keep in our mind as far as like if the door shuts in your face, where do you go next? And that is something that you did very well. That was able to you were able to thrive.
I'm going to repeat her question real quick for the people who are on the live stream. So she was saying there was a lot of work that went into getting the doors to open, but a lot of the accolades came from after the doors open and you're serving people. What did you do to set yourself apart?
Yeah, I mean, I think specifically around COVID, I think you have to just keep going. You have to come up with ideas, and you can't be afraid to try things and fail, I guess, is as simple as I can put it. We got open, we did a few weeks of soft opening events, created some buzz, probably got 2,000 or 3,000 people in the community through the space, did some fundraisers, it was awesome. Open for 3 days, shut down on Sunday the 12th of March. And, we kind of knew something was coming. I think that the basketball NCAA tournament, UD was on fire and going to win it all. And so you're hearing rumblings that the tournaments are getting canceled, and we're like, okay, this is just incredible. But by Sunday afternoon, couple hours after the governor shut down the state, it was just ideas. What do we do? How are we going to survive? And I was born out of necessity. At TM, we happen to have all of our cocktails, our signature cocktails are in a batch system, right? So they're all like batched and put in kegs, and we'd pull them off the wall. And anyway, we're sitting on $17,000 worth of product.
Oh, wow.
And that was the number in my head that I was like, how the hell are we going to get rid of this stuff? Like, we got to figure this out. And we had produce, and we had toilet paper, and we had, all kinds of stuff sitting there, and wasn't our idea. Other folks were doing this, but we pivoted to like a bodega, and we turned the back space of the building into this little shop and started selling stuff online, and did a ton of social media content, and we had created enough of a following and enough buzz to leverage to come up with all these crazy ideas over the course of the next 6 to 9 months that allowed us to survive. We were able to keep our leadership team intact. Didn't have to give anyone any time off. I mean, of course, our hourly staff, which we hired an awesome team of 22 individuals to open that place, and immediately had to let them all go, unfortunately. But the leadership team was intact, and so we got through it. But yeah, to answer your question, Summer, I think it's just not being afraid to fail. Try things. Just give it a shot. You have nothing to lose at that point, and you're going to learn from any mistakes or misgivings along the way. So that'd be the mentality that I think we try to impart in our culture. Is just, there are no stupid ideas. Let's work together. Let's come up with some stuff. Let's try it.
Well, and Chris always pushed us too to, be okay in letting go of the original idea, right? Like, that was super hard for me because we put so much energy into the environment beyond the cocktail side of things with Tender Mercy specifically too. Like, it's an immersive experience. And I was like, wait a minute, no one's going to get to enjoy this beautiful immersive experience we built, and that was heartbreaking, for a while. But, he pushed real hard to say, it's okay, we'll get through this. Like, let's do what's best for, our leadership team first and foremost, and our family, and what will keep the business alive. Be okay, swallow some pride, let go of those kinds of things, and just get through it. Because there's always just get through it in this industry, COVID or not. You know, so you got to kind of be okay with that.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Can you walk through, great job, by the way. Can you walk through a little bit of your approach and mindset in terms of your valuation?
The valuation process.
Yeah, this was a unique one. I think trying to value a hospitality company on the front side is really tough, right? We have a ton of experience in the industry that we could point back to, and so there was value in our experience, our collective experience. You know, we built a company as consultants before we set off to do this for ourselves and with our new partners. But, you know, it's certainly not, it's apples to oranges with, you know, how startup companies are valued. Also, we didn't have the ability to approach this with friends and family or seed or angel rounds and then series A and B. We kind of had to go from idea to what I would consider A in one big movement, right? We didn't start with a food truck, right? We didn't pinch our own pennies and start with a lemonade stand. We were going straight to the, you know, kind of coming out party to do this right.
You had a saying you would always say to folks that we had a unique advantage. What was we had like
I don't know.
I say this several times. Basically, part of getting to that point in the beginning to understand what we were capable of doing with the company before we valued it was hands down our expertise in what we'd done before. So collectively, we've when we brought Chris on, you know, we had opened and or had operations agreements with 40 different concepts throughout the country. So we knew what certain concepts could do, and you know, location based or not, or you know, tier 2 market or tier 3 market or not, like what can they do based on, you know, maybe a little bit of the demographics of the city or population, but we had a kind of a head start there to know if we build it this way, it will produce this, and that started the idea of a number.
In restaurants and hospitality, there are a few kind of traditional valuation models. One is a multiplier of profit, effectively, and a lot of folks will just use an annual gross revenue number. It's not great trying to exit, and transparently, not many folks get to exit, right? And so we didn't even talk about an exit when asked about it. You know, our goal is not to get 10 different unique flagships off the ground and then piece them all off, or even sell the group. Maybe we get an opportunity at some point. Maybe one of these things becomes scalable and we sell that thing off and, you know, keep going. But we couldn't responsibly define that on the front side. So it ended up being very simple. We think these two entities can produce X. To get them open, and this might be actually very informative, when we look at, as a sidebar, when we look at capitalizing a new concept and what money should go into that from a budgetary standpoint, we won't spend anything more than we think we can gross in a year. Okay, so at 20% back year over year, it's going to take us 5 years to break even. That's kind of what we conservatively attach conversationally to the numbers. And so we had to raise X to do this, and so based on the equity we were willing to give up in that deal, that put us at a valuation of Y. It's pretty straightforward, but there's not a whole lot of really well-defined industry standards around valuation, which made it really difficult to navigate. I think that was one of the things I struggled with most in the fundraising process, was understanding the kind of answers folks were looking for and the fact that we just couldn't responsibly even have them. You know, and so how do you sell that back? Well, they're investing in us at the end of the day, and that's what we focused on.
Great question. Really great. Any other questions? This is a treat, guys. Ask away. Go ahead.
You talked about team building on the professional side with the attorneys and accountants. Can you talk more about team building on the operational side, building culture, finding the right people, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about this all day, every day. This is like the jam. This is what we love. You know, I think it starts with the idea, which Charlotte has so brilliantly coined. I still use that. Like-hearted people, right? The servant mind. Danny Myers, a restaurateur out of New York, that wrote a book called Setting the Table, which is, you know, just kind of the industry standard bearer. It's a business book, but he takes his experience in hospitality and tries to help folks apply it to any industry. But he writes about something that he calls us 51 percenters. We call ourselves hospitalitarians. We believe that some of us have that servant heart. We are wired inherently to please others, and that's where we derive our own happiness, right? So that's kind of our first filter. If you're a dishwasher, or you're a CEO, or a finance person, or anything in between, if you're going to be on our team, we're looking for folks who have that servant heart, who are hospitalitarians by nature. We can train the technical side of the job, but we cannot teach you how to care on the level that you need to care day in and day out to provide great hospitality, right? Which is where success is driven from. So it starts with that first filter and unapologetic commitment to that. I mean, that's it. So that idea, that filter is woven into our online application process before we even meet people. We have voluntary questions in that process that help us understand someone's character and ultimately understand, hopefully, are they a hospitalitarian or not before we even jump on the phone with them or meet them in person. So there are operational strategies that support that idea, but that's where it all really starts and ends. And then the culture really is driven by how much collaboration, how much trust can you build? How do you live that out every day as a leader? How do your managers within your company live that out? How do you make sure that every decision you make is rooted in and looked through the lens of what is best for this culture, first and foremost, not profit. We're a people company. We happen to sell food and drinks, right? But we really ultimately sell an experience and a feeling. And so to do that, your culture has to back that up. Your team has to feel awesome about coming to work in order to do their job and make people feel great about being there.
I love that.
Chris, can you guys share, I've got some insider info, but can you share about your training process? Like, it's not just, hey, here's how to make some drinks, right?
Training process.
Yeah, I think it's different at a launch, right, than it is when you're up and running and you're maybe hiring someone new to join a team in an operation that's up and going. But big, really high standards, for sure. There's a lot of time and effort and intentionality that goes into building scalable systems that support really in-depth dynamic training. There's a lot to it. Everything from hospitality 101 and service steps 101 to understanding not only what's in the food or the drinks that we sell, but how and why are those things part of what we're offering, right? It's pretty in-depth, but we spend about a month in training before we open something new. Some of that's classroom, some of that's hands-on, some of that's situational. And then, if you're onboarding somebody after you're open, folks spend typically around 2 weeks going through the training process.
You were having your guys take tests and stuff like that too, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's
and ongoing tests.
What's that?
Even though they've been with us for a bit, they're still testing.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff changes constantly, right? And so if you're gonna do a good job producing a product or selling a product, you've got to be able to take people on a journey and really understand everything that's going on and why. Our programming changes constantly, and so our leadership team's got to have systems to fall back on and then live in them to make sure that folks are up on what we're doing.
I have a quick question. How did you go about choosing what chef you would work with for Sueno?
For Sueno specifically?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Sueno was a 5-year idea, so we had a number of candidates and friends that we had met and recruited, and kind of ultimately it came down to timing. But in the case of Chef Jorge and Sueno, first and foremost, none of the managing members are culinarily driven. We love food. We understand food.
Speak for yourself, Chris.
Yeah, David makes a killer banh mi. But we're not classically trained chefs, right? And so there is no, pillar of the company that handles the whole vertical of culinary. And so we needed someone who had the experience and the confidence, first and foremost, aligned with our value system in our approach to hospitality, because there are plenty of people out there that don't. And obviously is passionate about this cuisine and knows this cuisine and the culture and the heritage. And so Jorge was referred to us 4 years ago through some mutual friends. He went to culinary school with a guy that worked for Truffle, a company in LA. Talked to him. It was premature. We were not even close, but we started a relationship. He went on to get a James Beard nomination for a project he did here in the Midwest called Surly, Brewer's Table at Surly. So he went on his way, and we kept on plugging along, and we were getting closer and closer, and had a couple commitments that the timing just kind of forced us out of. Thank goodness it did, because Jorge is a perfect fit. Ultimately, we were reintroduced through one of our vendors, the company that we source our heirloom corn from, to do our masa program. So the corn comes from Mexico, but they also sold us the mill and all the utilities that go with that process. And so we had asked them, hey, who do you know in the Midwest that does consulting stuff, who's already working with you and your product, so on and so forth. And so he was on a short list that they sent us as well. So yeah, we courted for a while and got him on payroll and started to do life together, and he's been an amazing partner, and we've got big plans. So he now is kind of that culinary partner for the team, moving forward.
Well, I tell you, there's a saying in Southern families, and they put their foot in that. I tell you, it tasted so good. Part of my family is from LA, and they're Mexican, and I was sitting there, I was like, oh my God, Dios mío. I was just like, my girlfriends that I brought with me, they're like, girl, where you at? I'm like, I just need to come back, hold on. Because it was so good, muy delicioso. It was so, so good, and you could tell that his passion was in it. So, okay, that was my question. Any other questions from the crowd? Go ahead.
Yeah, I keep thinking everything you're talking about really goes back to trial and error, how you tried things, failed, whether it's getting through COVID or even your experiences of 40 plus, like when you went to value your company, that's what you relied on.
Right.
Speak about the trial and error process, but also how important it is to let go of the thing, to quickly see what's not working and to let go of those things.
Okay, the trial and error process.
Yeah, I mean, that's life, right? I mean, you can't be afraid to fail. And we kind of embrace it. I don't want to say we seek it out. This is another Silicon Valley thing. Everyone's like big on like, oh, seek out failure, which is kind of counterintuitive. But there's some truth in it. Take risks, dream big, come up with big ideas, give it your best shot. We're constantly tinkering, and when you come up short, what are the lessons you can apply to make sure that you don't make that mistake again? That's it. That's our only expectation, especially in hospitality, right? We preach this all the time. Our expectation is not that our servers or bartenders or managers are perfect in what they do every day. That's insane. We are going to F things up all day long. It's inevitable, right? It's how you handle those moments of adversity and failure that sets you apart, right? Like, just think about it from a customer service standpoint, right? A hospitality standpoint. Those moments when you drop the ball and need to make things right, you're either going to win them over for life or you're going to lose them forever. And I think the same is true internally. When someone goofs up and drops the ball, as a leader, as a business owner, you can come down hard and be Bobby Knight with an iron fist, or you can coach them out of it. And so we take much more of a Phil Jackson, Zen master approach to, let them go, let them get through it. Let's make sure we talk about it at the appropriate time. I might even give you a book to read, but we're not going to make that mistake again.
I love that. With anything that can be perceived as failure is also an opportunity. It's just a matter of how you decide to look at it, and it is a decision.
Well, I think the expectation is not that there's ever a finish line, right? We're constantly evolving. I like borrowing this from J.J. Redick, who's a basketball player. Kind of undersized dude, went to Duke, he was an All-American, went to the pros, got through his rookie deal, and he was looking around. This was on Ryan Hawk's podcast, I think I heard this story, Learning Leader. But anyway, JJ's whole thing was he saw all of his peers get to the league, and they were like, oh, they had arrived. Like guys were getting tattoos that said like arrived, and JJ realized he never had to work harder just to stay, and so his mentality became never arrived, always becoming. And I think there's a lot in that, in the work that we do and the expectations we set in our culture. You know, we're constantly going to stay curious.
Love that. Keeps them hungry. And, you know, there's evolution there. You know, you're all challenging each other every single day. Any other questions, guys? Look, this is... Do we? Okay, shoot. We are having fun, but we're going to take a break.
That was fun. Thank you, guys.